Hello and welcome to another episode of Laptop Retrospective, and today we have an interesting product to take a sneak peek at. This is from Vobot, and this is their mini dock. Now, you'll see when we unpack this that it has quite a few features, kind of spoiling it there on the front label there, that makes this a unique dock. So while it doesn't have a huge variety of ports, it does have some other features built in. Before I continue, I should mention that this was sent to me by Vobot for the purposes of this review. I am not being financially compensated for the production of the review, and of course my opinions remain my own. You'll also notice that we have a small gamepad remote, they call it over here, and we'll talk more about that in just a little while. Let's go ahead and open this up and see what we get in the box. So the inside here we get the Ultimate Screen Dock Combo for enhanced productivity. And it's a small introductory manual. We do have a charging cord in there as well, which is 100 watt capable. And then it also lists the specifications of all of the ports on the inside here. So I'll list them up on the screen nice and big so you can read them, but we do have two USB Type-C ports, 3.0, 5 gigabit per second, one USB-A port, same specs, Gigabit Ethernet, HDMI 4K 60 Hz, power input of 100 watts, and then the USB cable that connects to the computer, which supports 90 watt power delivery. This thing is Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capable and has a 2-inch LED display with a 7-segment 4-digit display clock. So once you have this thing connected to the Wi-Fi, that's how you access some of the functionality through the web browser and its IP address, which is an interesting way of doing things. This has different applications, some of which are built in, including weather, a timer, some stock prices, cryptocurrency, a calendar, a hardware monitor, to-do list, now playing, which shows what music is playing. And then there's also a game emulator, which is what this is for. And currently it supports emulation of NES games. And then there's also an opportunity for you to screen mirror, but on a display that size, I have no idea why you would do that. And then if there's an app that you want to develop yourself and you know anything about Python, specifically MicroPython, there's an address in here that allows you to get the information you need to program your own. So here we are. It's got the bit of smoked plastic. We do have the two USB Type-C ports on the left-hand side, USB-A on the back, Gigabit Ethernet, HDMI, and then the power input, which you will need to provide your own. And then we have the 90 watt out to the computer. There is a dial here, as well as a button, probably for navigating the various menus. So we're going to need a computer to plug this into, as well as a power supply. So we've got a range of LEDs showing off the inside, and it is doing this on the camera, but it's not doing this in real life. It's actually displaying the digits properly. So you can kind of see how it's alternating those LEDs faster than the human eye can see. And then we've got some instructions on telling us how to connect this to the Wi-Fi. And we need to visit the IP address that it gives us once we've connected. And once all that is done, it says it's successful. And we can see all of the apps that are on here already. And it's displaying the correct time. We'll just go ahead and plug this in so it is getting power. So if I wanted to go to the hardware monitor, and apparently I might need to enable application settings first. So I go to Settings, Application Settings, which is giving me another IP address. And it gives you some information on how to use different portions of this. And it looks like there's new firmware, so I should probably download and install that. It looks like the firmware is still in beta because it's version 0 or version 2.2. Estimated upgrade time is 5 to 15 minutes, so not a very strong CPU on the inside running this thing. So to use the PC monitor application, you need to download a separate program to run on the computer locally, so that's kind of a bit of a pain. See how the game emulator works. Alright, now it's scanning for a game controller, which is where this guy is going to come into play. So we'll take it out and power it on. And it looks like it's already been paired. So there's Double Dragon 2 on the smallest screen I have ever played it on. Latency isn't terrible, but it's not very good either. And yeah, I don't know. It's an interesting idea. But to me, especially without sound, it begs the question why. Like putting a small 1 watt, half a watt speaker in here would have gone a long way into making this more than just a gimmicky experience. And like, I know it's an experimental thing. It's in their experimental app list. But at the same time, if you're going to throw in a controller for the purposes of using it, to me that is because you want to draw our attention to it. And so this now playing has nothing to do with the computer. It's got everything to do with your iPhone. It doesn't even mention Android, so I'm not going to bother. Mini Dock configuration utility seems to be lacking is instructions on how to either add apps, but that appears to be under the manual. And yeah, you need Thonny and a Python programming kit, so it's not necessarily for casuals. Well, I'm going to keep messing around with this and I'll report back my thoughts. So I've done a fair bit of testing with the Vobot, and the idea is that the conclusion that I'm coming to is that this thing is kind of needs more time in the oven. So if you are buying this strictly as a dock, you're probably going to look at the port selection and say to yourself, well, that's not a whole heck of a lot, and that's a fair point to make. The other thing too is that, of course, that display for the time takes up the majority of the screen, only leaving this small section over here for all of the apps. And the apps are right now, at least in this version, kind of a mixed bag. And I say that because there are some apps on here that work okay, like the game player is nice, I guess. I did find it was dropping a couple of frames. It's not exactly buttery smooth. And a lot of the applications actually require you to download and set up additional software on the laptop or whatever device that you're using. So there's a lot of tinkering that you need to do to get full functionality out of this. So if you do not see yourself as a tinkerer or a person that really likes to muck about with their tech, then this is probably going to be something you want to stay pretty far away from. That being said, though, if you do like to tinker and you do like to code things and you like, you know, kind of reminds me of like the early days of Rainmeter, where you kind of had to like customize all the different components to get it to work and look a certain way. And I get the vibes from that. Now, for example, the QR code that it's telling me to go to look up all the different apps and things, I can get it to work on my phone, but I can't get it to work on the laptop, and I cannot for the life of me figure out why it is doing that. I've retyped the URL without the S and HTTP, but it cannot, for whatever reason, take me to the page to install the EXEs and all the other things that it wants me to do to use some of the additional functions. So, can I recommend this? Only if you look at this and say, yes, I want to play with that, and I want to customize it, and all of those sorts of things. If you're saying, I want a dock, and you don't really care about this screen or the whole front piece, then this is probably not going to be a product that would be of any interest to you. That's just the matter of the fact. I do hope that Vobot prices these things to make them accessible to the people that would want to mess around with them. And I do hope that as it gets closer to its full release and the community gets a hold of it, they're able to tidy up the kind of the HTML user interface on one end and just make this thing a lot easier and more accessible to use. Because if you don't have the time to put into it, you might find it to be a bit underwhelming. I do want to thank Vobot for sending this product to me for testing and feedback, and hopefully you have learned something as well. Once again, thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.